What's up guys, as you saw from the intro, today I'm going to be going over my Engineer Axton build for OP10. The main focus of this build is going to be using the legendary Engineer comm and of course Axton's turrets, as they actually do pretty good damage on OP10, especially this one skill, Nuke. Now a lot of people think that skill is really bad, especially in OP levels, but hopefully after this video you can see that the Nuke is actually a really good capstone and a skill that you might end up picking up in your own Axton builds. That being said, let's actually get into all the gear I'm using and then the skill trees, and then we'll show off some gameplay. Starting off, we have the Logan's gun, Slagga, Blockhead, and Volcano. Now these guns are going to be the primary weapons I use for flesh enemies, as all of these guns have grenade and splash damage bonuses, and we're going to be picking up a lot of those skills within my skill tree. And a lot of people really don't use the Logan's gun or Volcano because a lot of people think these guns are bad, but they actually do pretty good damage. So I would highly recommend you guys try and test these out. And in fact, I'll have a game save in the description where you can download and test out this build if you're on PC. For consoles, I apologize, but I will not have anything available for that. But yeah, that's going to be the majority of the guns we're using for flesh enemies, and then of course we have a long list of weapons for different elements. We have like sledges, shotguns, hornets, omens, Faruks, Lyudas. We have a bunch of pimpernels as well, some ravengers. So we have a long list of items that work really well in this build, because this build can pretty much work with any piece of gear you use. Going down to the shield, we're using the Big Boom Blaster. We're going to be using the Quasar a lot, which we'll talk about in a bit, to kind of pull enemies together. So we need to have our grenades up as much as possible, and the Big Boom Blaster allows us to have that. Plus, if we can get the proper elemental immunity, it just also helps with dot damages and stuff like that. So Big Boom Blaster, really good shield for the setup. Then we're going to be using a Quasar. This is just going to group enemies up. It also does good damage since Axton boosts a lot of grenade damage in his setups, especially for this build. You can also use a Slag Singularity instead. It doesn't have to be a Quasar, but I just prefer to have more damage rather than the slagging ability, since I can just slag enemies myself. Moving on from there, we have the Bone of the Ancients as our relic. We just have all of them in the different elements. This is pretty traditional to most builds on OP10. This just gives out the most damage for the guns you're using. That's why I have them. Plus it also just gives cooldown rate, which will be really good for our turrets. Then the Legendary Engineer comm. Now you might ask why I'm not using the Legendary Soldier comm or any other comm like that, as it also does give cooldown rate. But the Legendary Engineer not only gives cooldown rate with the passive on it, but it also gives cooldown rate with Resourceful, and also boosts up a bunch of turret skills and gun damage skills. So overall, I think the Legendary Engineer is more beneficial to this turret setup compared to the Legendary Soldier. If I was doing a pure Axton damage build, I would use the Soldier, but since I'm focusing more on my turrets, I'm going to be using the Engineer comm. Now that we went over the gear, let's go over the spec. Here's the overall spec. I'll just show you guys that before I go into the nitty-gritty details. We'll go down the gunpowder tree first. So we're going to be speccing into expertise for swap speed. Since we're not picking up double up, we need to be able to switch to our slag weapon as fast as possible. So having more swap speed is really good. Metal Storm is just a really good damage skill or DPS skill, as you'll have more fire rate and recoil reduction, just a great skill to have. Battlefront, since we have plus 10 out of 5 on this skill because of the Legendary Engineer comm, we get a lot more gun damage and grenade damage, and since most of the weapons we're using have grenade damage and splash damage properties, this skill is going to be very great for those. Then the longbow turret, this just helps me place the turret where I want it exactly and not 2 feet in front of me, so I don't have to be really close to enemies. This allows me to just throw my nuke exactly where I want it and not get compromised. Then we have Steady for just more grenade damage, recoil reduction, and launcher damage. This is just a really good skill to have on Axton. And like I mentioned earlier, since we're using a lot of guns that have grenade damage and splash damage bonuses, this skill is really good to pick up. Then Do or Die. This is just useful for obviously more grenade damage, but also when I go down into fight for your life and there's an enemy behind cover, I can use those singularities, pull them out, and be able to attack them and also move them in front of my turrets so they can kill the enemies as well. Editor's note, I forgot to mention that once you spec into do or die, you'll actually be 3 points short to get to nuke. So that's why we have 3 points into impact. It's the best skill to spec into, plus you get around like 30% gun damage because of the legendary engineer comm. Anyways, back to the video. Then moving to the capstone nuke. Nuke is the main point of this build. So basically the entire promise is I'm going to be throwing a quasar in the middle, and then I'm going to be throwing my turret right into the enemies. Not only does it do damage to the enemies, but it also displaces them. So when you use a singularity on an enemy, it actually causes them to go into this animation where they cannot attack you. They're basically stun locked. If you hit them with nuke, it actually puts them in that same animation. So with those two animations together, you actually have a large window to attack enemies and do damage towards them. Now that we're done with their gunpowder tree, let's go down the survival tree. Obviously we're picking up healthy and preparation just for more survivability and health. These skills are really good. Then we're going to skip the second tier, going straight to the third tier. I'm going to be putting 3 points into quick charge. You can put a lot more, as I'll go through later, as there's some other point allocations you can do, but 3 points is sufficient enough, and it just helps keep your shield up whenever you get a kill. Plus it also stacks with another skill, Willing, which allows your shield to stay up for a good amount of the time. Failing shield, although we're throwing the turret in the middle of a bunch of enemies and the shield will get destroyed immediately, if I need some type of survivability and I'm in a really poor position, I can throw the turret at my feet and have a bubble where I can get a free hit or so I don't end up dying or bleeding out. Moving to forbearance, I only put 1 point here because it's still pretty effective with 1 point, but basically less status effect duration is always good to have. If you want to not spec into forbearance, you can put this point into quick charge. 10 points on resourceful because of the legendary engineer comm. This just allows us to have our turrets up more often. And since we're using a turrets, this is a really, really important skill to have. Maglock, this just makes it so when I throw my turret, it goes to exactly where I want it and not like a little bit off to the side or it bounces off something that I don't want it to bounce off. That's why I just have Maglock. Just makes it a lot easier to use. Grit, this is the best survivability skill in the game. No one is ever topping this skill. Always pick this up. You're pretty much never dying. It says 20% chance to ignore death. It's like 100% of the time. It is just such a great skill to have on Axton. And then Demonite. The reason we have Demonite is so not only can we throw 1 turret, but we could throw 2 turrets, which means we have 2 nukes. So we can actually get a bunch of kills off. So like, boom, 1 nuke, boom, 2 nukes. Moving on to the gorilla tree. We're going to put 10 points into sentry because of the engineer comm. Obviously just more duration and shots fired per burst. This is just really good for the turret. Reload speed, this just helps with obviously our general weapons, but also our slagging weapon if you for some reason need to reload. This is just a good skill to have. Willing, I mentioned this earlier, but this is a really good shield skill to keep you up and actually helps you have really good survivability. And with quick charge, your shield is going to be staying up the majority of the time. Able is a really good skill for healing and is the reason why I don't have any Moxie weapons equipped. You pretty much just need to do damage to enemies and you get 4% of your max health back per second. It doesn't stack, but it does not need to stack to get its full effect. It's actually just such a really good skill. Then we have Scorched Earth. The turrets just do more damage and it actually like kills really fast. Like if you have a ultimate badass and you throw 2 turrets at him, the nukes are going to pop off, stun lock him, and then both turrets are going to volley rockets at him and just murk his health bar. And then I had 1 point left. I put in the Grenadier that have an extra grenade, but if you don't want to do that, you can go and put it into forbearance. Or not even forbearance, you can put it into quick charge. There are a lot of different options you can do with this last skill point. I just like having the extra grenade. Anyway, that is the general setup. And now we're going to go into some gameplay. Alright, so we're here at Magni's Lighthouse. This place has a lot of enemies that are like put in a small space, and I feel like this would be a great place to show off the build. Throw some singularities, get some people together, slag them up, throw nuke. So one of them's dead and the other one got killed by my turret. You still have my other turret, so get all these guys grouped up. Right, slag them up, nuke. pushes the guys that were attacking me away, and gets these guys all nice and messed up. So yeah, let me use the volcano a bit. One shot. Logan's gun. Just shoot her right at the feet of the enemy. These guys are doing some good damage to me, so I'm just gonna displace them a bit. Quasar also does some good damage because of the grenade damage bonuses I have, which is also really good. So yeah, I'm down here, but the volcano does good enough work. So yeah, we just got this one guy. I'm gonna just throw my nuke. See, and I was close to my Quasar, so that's what ended up killing me there. So you gotta make sure you're like at a good distance so you don't get caught by your own singularity. Quasar, get them all slagged up, throw nuke. Okay, so he's dead from the turret. Slag him up. Turret kills him. Slag up. Turret kills him. Beautiful. Yeah, so run around this corner, throw a singularity. So they're not grouping up, so I'm just gonna blow this guy up with my nuke. Pick up my action skill. And since I picked it up, it's gonna regen pretty fast. Alright, we got some enemies over here. Blow one up. They're the other one over there. So turret's gonna finish this guy up. And turret's gonna finish this guy up. Like, see, he didn't even have time to react. He was all staggered from the nuke. So turret got a kill there. And I use the volcano. Volcano just melts him. Do the same thing again. Turret just nuked his ass. So yeah, he's gonna be all slagged up. If I can hit my shots. I can't hit my shots. So boom, volcano sweep. Oh, we got some enemies coming out, so let's group them up with the singularity. 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 Get them all slagged. That guy pulled me right into him, but it's okay. Nuke got oh my god, Nuke actually blew them up like crazy. And now these two turrets with the deep sea whaler all slagged up, just gonna get absolutely melted. And these snipers over here, you can just bring them with the Quasar, get them to line of sight, and the turret to do the rest of the work. And then of course I can also poke myself if I really need to with the volcano. And then this guy I can use the Logan's gun. Logan's gun also works fantastically too. That guy just got destroyed. Yeah, so we're just gonna group these guys up one more time. Nuke. Out him. And then this enemy behind us, we can just get him into line of sight. Nuke his ass. And yeah, that is it's doing some good work. We're here at Washburn Refinery, and we're going to be showing off some corrosive guns and how this build works with loaders and other armored enemies. And obviously, same spec, no bar, all my guns that I'm using: Sledges, Varuk, Hornet, all really good guns that people never use. And yeah, let's get started. So this first guy, I'm just gonna fucking nuke his ass. Yeah, and you can see like the nukes don't do as much damage, but the turrets do perfectly fine damage against the loaders, as you can see here. So we got these guys grouped up. Just regroup them up. Throw my nuke. Throw it again. This power loader got pretty messed up by the nukes anyway. So they got messed up. Put these guys in the line of fire. Get this exploder with my Hornet. Get them all slagged up. Varuk is really good on Axton and just loaders in general because of how it shoots horizontally. So as long as you aim right in the middle of their head, all the pellets are going to be hidden. Alright, so we're going to have the badass that's over here. So just slag them up. Turret. Turret. Double turret up. And then we just have the Hornet. So he's just going to get volleyed with all the bullets from the turret and the nuke. And he's dead. Alright, so let's use the Sledge shotgun a bit because we have him in. So Let's group these enemies up. All nice and together. Nuke. Nuke. Then run up sledges. The sledges is not as good against loaders compared to flesh enemies because of just how their crit is. So hitting all the pellets onto them is really, really hard. So as long as you get like... My best way of getting it like consistently is you have to kind of be perpendicular to the loaders to line up all the shots. And he's dead. It's like this guy. Turrets are gonna finish him off. Use that to stop him from spinning his arms. And then now we're good. Alright, so let's try that again. Get them close together. A nuke over here. Oh, you thought you were slick, huh? Get it away. Another nuke. Just run over here. Yeah, turrets are actually doing great work. Like I mentioned earlier, the AI might not be the best, but once it does work, like you actually get very sufficient damage out of it. Group him up again. Nuke his ass. Nuke his ass up. Nuke his ass up. And he's dead. Alright. Of course, Varuk just hauling ass. And I think you guys get the general gist of the build. As you can see, I'm just hauling absolute ass. And that is my Engineer Axton build for OP10. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and learned something new today, as when I was making this build I learned a lot of things about Axton that I didn't really know about before, especially with how good Nuke is, as I thought that skill was absolutely terrible. Not only did I find out that Nuke is actually a good skill, but I found a build that I'm probably going to be using as my daily driver for Axton. If you want to see more gameplay from this build, you can go into the description and click on the VOD where I go and break down everything about this build and test a bunch of cool gear on it. I usually do this a lot on my channel where I test my builds there, and I'm kind of starting to incorporate them into my videos. So if you want to see more of this stuff, please leave some suggestions and comments down below. Before I leave, I want to give a huge thanks to Fierce Chimera for helping me out with the intro and getting all the footage, and I also want to thank Hugo Mendez, which is, you guys probably don't know, but he's a good friend of mine who actually helped make the high quality icons for Axton skills, which made the thumbnail look fantastic. So if you want to go watch some of his content, he usually does a lot of TF2 stuff. His link will also be in the description. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. See ya!